On this episode, I sit down with Skye Michiels, who is a real estate veteran, the managing director for a national brokerage, and the host of the 6 a.m.ers. With over 16 years of real estate experience, he shares the 5 secret strategies you can implement in your business today to take it to the next level. We also dig into his business philosophy, his personal mission, and why finding your own fingerprint is critical for anybody to grow a team. Now, before we get started, go ahead and do yourself a small little favor and hit that subscribe button now. And without further ado, I'm your host, Shawn Kunkler. Skye, welcome.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here. So it's great.
Awesome. Well, it's funny. We had a little bit of a false start to try to get you here, but I feel like that's just like normal real estate.
It's just so everyone knows too. Yeah, I was trying to download like an update to Chrome and it didn't work. And of course, I waited till the last minute like most realtors. So it took me 45 minutes on the phone with like tech support and everything. So I'm thrilled to finally be here. Tech is working great. We're all good to go. So
I'm stoked to have you. There's so many things that you do. I feel like I'm excited to chat with you. So, I mean, let's just kick it off. Like, let's start simple and then we'll build from there. Who are you and what do you do?
Who am I? Great question. And I always struggle with like how to answer this. So the way I'll answer this is who I am is I am a person who is driven every day to work at being better for myself. I believe that I am a person who cares tremendously about the world. I care tremendously about other people. And over the years, as a recovering people pleaser, I've also learned, most importantly, to care about myself and care and recognize the fact that if I'm taking care of myself, it allows me to show up in a much bigger way than when I'm trying to make everyone else around me happy. Probably not the exact answer you were looking for, but I always that's a great question. And that's sort of who I am. That's who I am. Now, what do I do is a little different. My official title is the head of agent development for Compass Real Estate. And my job is basically to build, create, deliver training materials for real estate agents on how they can make their business better, make their lives better, learn technology. And I view my role as a translator. I know real estate from 20 years of doing the business at every single level, from a part-time agent to the owner of a brokerage. So what I have the skill set to do is I can take my knowledge of real estate, take my knowledge of Compass, and I can blend the two together. And then I can translate to a realtor at Compass what the technology allows them to do within their business. So it's a fun skill set to have. And years ago, I was a high school history teacher. So the great thing now is I'm back to being a teacher and being able to teach people about different concepts, not necessarily history, but about real estate, which is an industry that I absolutely love and adore.
It's interesting in researching you and learning these different pieces. It was like the more things I learned, I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Just because your approach, you're a coach, you are a teacher, and then you have these really valuable assets that you bring with you. I mean, you had 16 years in the business, and I don't remember offhand. I mean, you had a like staggering, was 2016? It was like a 90 million.
2017, we did 242 units as a team. I had 12 agents, 4 full-time admin. We did 242 sale units, by the way, not rentals, like full on. Those were our sales, and huge. And we did Philadelphia price range was a little low, so I think we were around like 93 or 94 million. My goal was 100, and we didn't get there, but we did. We had a phenomenal year.
I don't think I'd be upset.
No, I was not upset at all. It was a great year. It's funny though, because I think sometimes another lesson from that 2017 was like you strive to hit a goal sometimes. And when you get, sort of target focused, meaning like all you care about is hitting that, it really can drain the enjoyment of the journey away. So at the end of 2017, I was a little bit burned out, as you could probably imagine, 242 deals. It's a lot. Now, granted, I had a big team and we were all doing really good business. But I still was managing 12 people alone. Actually 16 people technically is a full-time job, let alone doing all the real estate stuff and transactions. With 242 deals at any given day, there was some challenge taking place within the team. Someone was dealing with a deal that was going wrong or whatever it might be. So
I can only imagine. I mean, 200 plus deals, like, yeah, something is always happening and it's not always awesome stuff. So within that, what was it sounds like you were actually doing transactions.
yeah, so by 2017, I was at a point where I only did listings. I didn't handle any of the buy sides. Any buy side referral would come in, I would refer it out into the team. We had a little bit of a round robin system. So I was still doing transactions and managing the team. There's a piece of me today that would love to do a transaction. There's something I love about selling real estate. But at the end of the day, I also know my highest and best use of my time right now is really pouring myself into coaching, training, and teaching real estate agents on how to be, better business owners and also better people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's interesting. It was a piece of advice my father gave me. He started a business and ran it for 40 years. And he said, he originally started the business thinking he was going to do a lot of this one thing. And then once he started the business, he was doing completely different things to manage and run the business.
Yeah.
Let's back up before that. What inspired you to actually get into real estate?
Well, I was poor. That was the inspiration. So I grew up poor.
That's a good motivator.
Yeah. My mom, who's, one of my heroes, is, single mom, like raised us, she was a full-time librarian, and to her credit, like we never knew we were poor until the day we filled out college application, and I should have known, like, we had like reduced lunch and all this stuff, but I loved, I had so many friends. I was rich in life. But I did start working at the age of 12 as a paper boy at 12, so I've been working since the age of 12. So, but, I went to college. I was on the crew team at Syracuse. I graduated with my master's degree. I got a great job at a great school district, and you turn around after taxes are taken out and, and you're like, wow, I'm poor. So I got into the business in essence because of the fact that one of my friends and mentors at school was like, hey, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would go back and get my real estate license and sell real estate part-time and teach full-time. And I sort of took the idea and ran with it, and thinking, at the time I would sell 3 to 5 homes a year. You make some extra money, and I'll teach full-time, and that's my passion. Summers, weekends, nights, whatever, I'll sell a little bit. But I felt in 2002, I got my license. In 2003, really started to get into it. And I was extremely competitive as well with myself, but also with other people in the office. And the business just started to build and take off. And, I didn't have the ability to say no back then. And I still struggle with that today. So the business sort of took off. And finally, in 2005, it was at a point where I had to make a decision for my, I couldn't live like this anymore. School started at 7:22. You get out at 2:30. You go into the office from 3:30 to 8. You're still in real estate. You get home at 8 o'clock. You eat some quick food, usually takeout. You don't work out because you don't have time. And then you either grade papers, write an offer, I would have offers going and grading going all at the same time. And it just was, your brain, let alone your body and your soul, your brain is struggling to keep up with all of this stuff, so, and we didn't have technology in 2004 and 5. I mean, we had some technology. We didn't have the technology now, like Business Tracker, all the transaction management to keep it all straight. So it was a lot of whiteboards and spreadsheets and, hoping and praying. And it just was at a point where I had to make a decision of which way to go. And was I going to be a teacher full time and then really dial it down to like a referral business with 1 or 2 or 3 deals thrown in? Or am I going to go full-time real estate? And then finally in 2005, I made the decision to become a full-time realtor.
Interesting. Yeah. And you make such a great point. Like back then, you didn't have the entire world of technology in your pocket.
Nope. Which blessing and curse, right? Because the challenge we have now, it's similar to the challenge that high school kids have, or, my daughter's in middle school. Like, they leave school and school comes with them home. And with real estate, like, we had a flip phone, but you could feasibly and that's why it worked in the beginning too, because you didn't need to return a phone call right away because you didn't have a text message coming through, right? So you could feasibly say, "Oh my God, I just saw your voicemail, and now I'm returning your phone call, and it's at 4:00 in the afternoon." That's okay. Nowadays, if I send someone a text at 9:00 in the morning, and it's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you," and they don't get back to me until 4:00 in the afternoon, I'm like blowing them up, probably. You know what I mean? So it's a blessing and curse all at the same time. So
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. And especially, I mean, as you work with a client through a transaction,
yeah.
it's harder now to have a dead spot than it potentially was back then. So when you first were starting, were you solo or were you on a team?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I love my journey because I've done every facet of real estate except for being a team member. Like, I was never a member of a team. So when I started out as a part-time agent. Then I was a full-time agent. I very quickly hired an admin, and then pretty soon after that, I hired two admin. And I was a full-time individual agent with two full-time admin for a pretty long amount of time until 2013. I started my team in 2013. So then started to build the team out. And then I launched a brokerage as one of the original investors and co-owners of a marketplace for Keller Williams in 2016. And then 2018, Compass came to town, and I fell in love with Compass, and I'm still in love to this day with this amazing company. And then this past year, what's really cool is I was a sales manager in 2018, and I was a managing director for Philadelphia, helped launch that market. And then this past year, I was promoted to the head of agent development. So I'm able to now do my passion. It's almost full circle where it's all come. So it's really fun.
It's really enjoyable to watch I met you about a year and a half ago, to watch your trajectory become more teacher, more coach. And it sounds like it's full circle. It's brought you back where you are. So let's go back to the team and building it, because this is something that agents always want to know, is how to build a team. Similar to you, I started solo, and then I hired an operations person first, and then brought on an agent, which I studied the Keller Williams book. I'm not with that brokerage. I'm also with Compass, but I think the Millionaire Real Estate Guide is it's phenomenal.
So the one challenge as someone who also was at that company and learned so much from Keller Williams and Gary Keller and everything, the only challenge is they call it the model of how to run a team. The only challenge is the model is predicated on a lot of movement within your organization as you grow. So if your philosophy matches that model, it's a good model. But the challenge most realtors run into is the fact that what they want to build doesn't match that model. So for example, for me, I really wanted to build a team of sales agents who were very stable. I didn't want agents becoming, all this scaled service factors. I wanted to build a big team, but I didn't want a team where agents were passing their clients off to other people. I did believe in a client service first model, which predicated that agent sort of being the shepherd, or the Sherpa, or the guide, or whatever you want to call it, through the entire transaction. And then we would add support layers underneath the agent, so they're getting support throughout the journey, but they're still quarterbacking the whole entire process. So that was really important to me. So it's a great model, great book. But the one thing I always try to coach agents on around teams is a team is your fingerprint. So your fingerprint, every person's fingerprint is unique to them. It's very similar within real estate teams, that every single team is unique to that individual. And our society and our culture is really, we are entering this world of a comparison culture, where all the time what we're doing is comparing ourselves to other people. And it's a real detriment when you come to a team, because what it creates is this world where you get pulled so far away from your fingerprint that you start doing things that really don't, work for your emotions, your spirit, your happiness, the business goals you have, et cetera. So I think that's the first thing you need to do, is get really clear on what your why is and what you're trying to build. Right? This is what I'm trying to build, and this is why I'm trying to build it. And the three most common reasons, right, are time, money, and emotion. These are the three most common reasons that agents will want to build a team. They want to make more money, or they want more time, or they want to be happier. And usually it's the combination of all three in some mixture, right?
Yeah.
The trap is of running a team. Often when you run a team, you may lose time because now you're taking care of other people. You may lose money because now you're paying for more expenses. And now you're not very happy because people are complaining and leaving you. And when you start to run a team, you're now managing people, and this can be a challenge. So the whole key goes back into making sure you get really clear about what you're trying to create, how you're going to create it, and then is it successful or not? And that's I think one of the biggest things that people sort of miss the mark on their why, and they start comparing. So they start looking around at other teams and being like, I want to be like that team, but not really understanding the why of what they're after.
Have you read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it. Yeah.
It's actually really good. And the E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. And it basically unpacks, similar to what we just talked about a moment ago, is, once you start building a business, you move roles. And as you move roles, your responsibilities change, your time constraints, everything keeps evolving and changing. But the E-Myth is the example they give in the book is this woman made pies, and she made like amazing pies. But the bigger she built her business, the less pie she was actually making. So it was pulling her away from the thing that actually made and brought her joy. And it's the whole crux of the book. It's a fantastic book, and I'm not by in any stretch of it doing it justice, but I think it's a great read for agents, because I think we do lose our way a little bit because we compare ourselves to, oh, these people are putting up numbers, or this person is, so they have an assistant, I should get an assistant, or this person's partnered up with this other agent, so I should do that.
Yeah.
Like we start building it not for ourselves, but to keep up with the Joneses.
That's right. Exactly. And there's one guarantee when you try to keep up with the Joneses, is you're not going to keep up with the Joneses. Right. And it's, you're guaranteeing this world where your happiness is all contingent upon other people. And that's a world that I've, try every single day to make my happiness contingent upon me.
That's important.
It's so critical. So especially if you run a team,
That's something you don't learn until later in life.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true.
That one, it takes a minute. I don't think I figured that out until my either late 30s or early 40s of, oh, it's all on me.
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out. So.
What I enjoy, the last time we even connected, is you have a very growth mindset. And I think people who do, they tend to look at the world a little bit differently. It's these opportunities to grow and evolve. So, all right. So talk to me about your day. How do you structure?
I'll wave my magic wand and create my perfect day. Right. So my perfect day is I wake up at 4:45 in the morning. I meditate. I'll read, and just to be fully transparent, I read on the toilet in the morning. I don't bring my phone in. Like, my goal is not to look at my phone in the morning. I've guided meditation. I'll play it on the phone. I'll, go to the bathroom, read, get my cup of coffee, and be out the door to the gym at like 5:15. Get home. I do my 6 a.m. call on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I do a 6 a.m. East Coast call. After that, get my kids ready to school, get them off to school, come back. Typically, by the time I get them to school, I'm coming home, getting sort of my, showered, ready for the workday. And then I do my 9 a.m. West Coast 6 a.m. call. So 6 a.m. West Coast time. So I do 4 calls a week. The West Coast call, I have a partner out there, Emily Bossert, who also co-hosts with me. And then from there, the day, it's so hard to answer because each day right now is so different, where I'm traveling to teach or train. So it could be I'm in a different market. I did a live 6 Amers in Seattle, in January, and that was awesome. But the reality is, like, if I'm traveling in a market, usually that day is just booked up solid with agent interaction. Whether it's presenting, whether I'm meeting one-on-one, it could be I'm presenting to staff as well, trying to make staff better. If I'm not traveling at that point, most of my day is consumed with planning, preparation, and or meetings with teams either in a region or with my team on our side to build content and actually deliver content.
Well, thanks for carving out time to do this. I appreciate
I love it.
Hearing your schedule and everybody success. I'm always like, holy cow. Just the stuff successful people do.
Yeah. Well, I think too, this is important because I think one of the things that's hard when you're in a position like you or like me is you put out content that you hope is going to have an impact on people, but you don't know if it's going to have an impact. So this is important work to do because of the fact that it's really critical that we start to flood, our minds and the people that are listening. You want to be surrounded by positivity, by good messages, by growth, by learning, all these things that make us happy. And often, especially because of your cell phone, we're not surrounded by that stuff. And that's really, really critical to get back into this world where I want to be surrounded all day with this growth mindset and with a mindset that this is something I call it the mountain with no top. Like, we are climbing a mountain that has no top. We're never going to get there. So the whole key to being happy is being where my feet are, and right in that moment, recognizing how good things are in this moment. And so I think my message is that this stuff is important because of the fact that we're going to put it out there into the world. And someone right now is listening to this and it's having an impact on their business. We don't know that, right? Rarely do we know the impact we have, but I can't worry about that impact. What I got to worry about is being the light. There's a concept I call being the light instead of giving the light. And a lot of people worry all day about giving the light, right? Helping this person, making them feel better, making them happy, doing this. And instead, we got to turn internal and be the light. And then when we become the light, so to speak, where we're happy and you know these people in your life, right? Where you get around them, you can't not be happy because they're so happy. They're so, vibrant and full of life and joy. And that's a good example of where you want to be the light, not try to give the light. Because when you're giving and giving and giving, you're taking away from yourself. And it really puts you in a depleted state of mind where you can't help people.
That is 100% true. And I really hope whoever's listening to this really internalizes that. I think, driving in the morning, the first thing I always try to do is not put on the news, not put on music, but I actually try to listen to something positive, something uplifting. Like Tony Robbins for years was a go-to of just basically programming and feeding my subconscious. And so just, even if I'm just listening to it and I've woke up on the wrong side of the bed, but just having that positivity around it's just so important. I mean, we joked earlier, like you and I tried to hop on this call the other day and we ran into all these obstacles. And at one point I remember laughing to myself and I was like, well, if this is the worst part of my day, like, this is awesome.
Exactly. Exactly.
As a realtor and, you have 200 deals, something inevitably is going wrong. Like, you could be pissed off and deal with it, or you could be blessed that you have this problem to solve. And it's the same problem. It's just which side of it are you perceiving it from? And I think the beautiful part is you have the choice. And you remind me, I got away from it, but my morning ritual was I would get up in the morning. I'm not as early as you, like as much as I would like to. The Jocko mentality of cracking on is just not there for me. I love that guy, but insane. It's Jocko Willenick.
Yep.
If you don't know of him, he's a former Navy SEAL who just is a huge advocate of getting up early and doing the work.
Yeah. And leadership too, right? And I think in many ways, like, getting up early is an example of being a good leader in the sense of, like, I'm going to do hard things because there's actually a lot of joy, excitement, and reward when I do hard things in my life. And he's someone that has had a major impact on me. And I think in many ways, like, we don't teach leadership, right? We just hope people know how to do it or are born that way. But the reality is, you got to go out and you got to learn how to be a good leader. And unfortunately, we don't have enough leadership training out there in the world. So,
yeah, I agree. I think leadership is a perishable skill, and it's a skill you have to proactively go after daily. One quote that I always try to go back to is leaders go first. And it sounds like you really live by that. It's like you are putting yourself out there and you are doing these things, being the light, and then thus other people are using that as an example. Like your kids obviously are watching you get up and grind, and that's the beauty of it.
it's huge.
I try to as best I can. I always try to make my workout every day the hardest part of my day. Like I want it to be the hardest, gnarliest thing. So then everything else that I measure against that is not so bad. Like it's on an actual manageable level beyond that point.
Yep. So true, man. And I think too, that's like what's so great about what we do as realtors is, like, we do deal with some very, very hard things. But the reality is, like, if we take care of ourselves, we have a great mindset and a great approach to each day, like, those hard things aren't hard things anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard in theory, but it's, eat well, work out, sleep, like take care of yourself first. It's like when you're on the plane and you're hitting a ton of turbulence, the oxygen mask drops down, you put yours on first, then you go and help everybody else. Like it's not similar.
It's not. And it's so hard. And it's so amazing how hard it is for people to do that. And a lot of it's, we're fed all this messaging that it's actually bad to take care of yourself. Right. So I've coined a term I have on my wrist on a 6-hour bracelet. It's called healthy selfish, where it's actually good to be selfish around your health. Right. So that means, like, hey, you could go and do a showing, or you could answer a bunch of emails, or you could go work out. And it's a hard concept to grasp. So that actually going to work out is actually going to allow you to do more, not less. But most people are taught that, hey, you got to make sure you're taking care of everyone at the same way, at the same level, at the same time. And that's just going to drive you insane when you take a step back and you look at it.
And that's ultimately healthy boundaries is knowing, is being able to approach that client. I had a client text me. It was like 8:30 on a Saturday. And it was this long laundry list. And I was, hey, I appreciate the text. It's too late. I'm spending time with my family. I'll get back to you tomorrow, period. And that was it. And I think we need to do that. More often I see agents who just kind of they get overrun by their clients, or we're worried about reviews and how we're going to be perceived. But I think ultimately we respect people who respect themselves.
That's right. And I think too, it comes back into always practicing a Jocko concept of extreme ownership, that if a client is violating my boundaries, what is the ownership that I have in that? Number one, did I explain, do I have boundaries? Number one, right? If you have boundaries, you can't be wishy-washy. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to answer this call at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. on a Saturday one week, but not the next week, right? So what are the boundaries? Are they defined? Number two, did I communicate those properly? And then number three, do I have a system of communication before we even get to this issue or challenge, where the seller knows how I communicate, when I communicate, and he feels or she feels very well taken care of, that when that issue pops up and you text back, I can't get back to you right now because I'm with my family. I'll call you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. They're like, great. I respect that tremendously. And if you get the person that doesn't respect it, you have your independent contractor. You can get rid of that person you don't need to work with everyone out there. So I think that's a practice, extreme ownership. And rather than getting mad at the person, you can then say, all right, what is my ownership in it? And how can I make sure I always am improving because most people, if you explain the boundaries, it's written out, it's really clear, it's consistent, and it's fair. Most people are going to actually respect you more for having that boundary. If it was me, I'd be like, I mean, if it's an emergency, I'm going to let you know, hey, I need help right now because my roof caved in and I don't know who to call, and you're my agent. All right, sure, I'll return that call, right? But hey, can you explain paragraph 12C that we got to settle on Thursday next week into 8:00 at night on a Saturday? What does paragraph 12C mean? Like, no, that's a boundary, and you just violated it, sir. So.
Jocko's book, I highly recommend that too. Not to make this all about just promoting books today, but Extreme Ownership is a fantastic. That was actually a book. His book I devoured when I was working out. I always love to listen to books because I can maximize my time. So I listen to workout. David Goggins, who I'm sure.
Another great one. Yeah. And I'll throw in there, this is another thing that I'm passionate about when you ask like who I am. I also think it's really powerful when you learn how to leverage both of your masculine and your feminine side. Mm-hmm. The other balance of the Jocko, David Goggins, etc. books, I would put in there is like a Brene Brown or an Abraham Hicks Law of Attraction or a Tony Robbins or there's so many amazing female authors that you can pick up. Mel Robbins, right? So you blend those two forces together. And I think that's where you get really powerful. And one of the authors on the Six Hammers, Lynn Twist, she talks about a fable from the Mayans about, the world is basically a bird. And the masculine wing for the last 500 years has been overpowering the feminine wing. And that's what's caused us to go in circles. And the minute that we balance the masculine and feminine energy, then we're going to fly higher and faster than anything we've ever imagined. And it's an interesting concept and, fable to think about because of the fact that, you as a realtor, you deal with all people. If all you dealt with was hardcore Navy SEALs, sure, just read Jocko and David Goggins and you'll be fine. But the reality is we deal with all types of people. So as a realtor, you need to be able to be malleable and be able to move very quickly into different personality talks and personality mindsets to do your job at a high level.
There's nothing about that I would disagree with. I think, the Jockos and the David Goggins are those days when you don't want to do it, but you have to do it because it's good or healthy or beneficial. That's the day you turn them on. And then Brene Brown, she has her own podcast. She has phenomenal talks on Netflix and YouTube. Amazing woman. And I agree. I think we have to, if you just consume the information and stay around it, when you need it, it'll show up. You have to onboard it. Like you have to be around it and not just subscribe to all these clicks and things that are grabbing and stealing your attention throughout the day.
It's so true.
Yeah, it's tricky to kind of balance all of these pieces. But to work, I would say in my experience with individual clients, I've studied the different personalities and personality traits, but the DISC, it's DISC, has hands down been by far the most beneficial from a sales perspective, because in a few minutes, not even in a minute of a client talking to me, I can immediately start to understand which personality is dominant for them. And then within that, start understanding their model of the world just based on the quick conversation or looking at their job description and looking at their social. You can start to figure it out very quickly.
Yeah, it's so critical. And Shawn, there's not to be a plugger of all books, but there's a book written by a guy named Merrick Rosenberg, where he, in essence, takes the birds. He takes an eagle, an owl, a parrot, and a dove, and he equates those birds into the personality style. And it's really powerful for me because of the fact that I always struggled with that disc because I was like, wait, I don't want to walk around saying, oh, you're a D, you're I, you're a DI, high C, right? Like you have all these acronyms when you really get into disc profiling.
Yeah.
When I interviewed Merrick Rosenberg on the Six Hammers and we were, he's talking about the birds and his philosophy and all this stuff, I was blown away because I was like, oh my God, this is so easy. I can look at this person and in my head, I'm like, ooh, that's an eagle. I need to be able to adjust my sales pitch to this style ASAP in order to be effective. Oh, that's a dove. So the dove, I'm not going to come in and talk about how many sales I've done. I'm going to talk about like, oh, how are her children doing? What does she envision or he envision in this future home? With the eagle, I'm not going to go up to the eagle and be like, hey, you need to calm down. Relax. You want to trigger an eagle, you say the words calm down or relax. No, an eagle, I'm like, ooh, we're going to win this negotiation. Like, you are so smart. This is going to be great. Right. And there's no right or wrong or good or bad. It just is a way of recognizing someone in their strengths and understanding their weaknesses so you can deliver content in order to address that.
It all just comes down to having tools in your toolbox. And the more that you have access to, the more things you can approach. And ultimately, I always viewed it, or I actually taught it like this to people on my team is, imagine you're traveling to a far off land and you go into a restaurant and you're walking by a table and somebody in all murmuring is speaking English. And you're like, oh my gosh, a friend. Just because they speak the same language as you. And by knowing this, like knowing if they're a dove or an eagle or a D or an I, you're just simply understanding their language and then matching them. And so you can it's ultimately to guide them where they need to go, which is ultimately, that's really what we do. What you do is in your day-to-day and what we do as agents and across the board. It's same with having kids and having a personal life. It's that we can understand people and where they're coming from and their perspective, far better off all of us will be.
And if you're worried about reviews, if you connect with someone on that level, you'll have more reviews than you can even imagine, right? Because of the fact that they feel like they matter. So if you're listening to this and ask yourself the question, have I made the people in my database feel like they mattered to me or not? If all you've done is blast them with open house emails and new listing and all that stuff, like they don't care about you, they don't know you, they're not going to refer you or use you. But if you show up as a human being and you create a human connection, like that's where the magic really starts to happen.
That ultimately just comes down to genuinely, authentically being interested in the other person and engaging with what they're saying. You don't have to agree with it. Just seek out to understand them. And if it's a client or an agent or whomever, just seek first to understand. And then these little things start to emerge from there. So talk to me a little bit more about this 6 a.m.ers.
So the original root of the group actually occurred a couple of years prior to me starting it in April 2020. And it originated, I was getting a divorce in 2016 into 17. And I have a very beautiful divorce, a great co-parenting relationship with my ex-wife, great kids, but it rocks your world. And I was in a very, very bad space. And one of my best friends, Jake Dreyfus, who is a business partner and friend of mine, he would start sending me clips of Jocko in the morning. And then he'd be like, all right, just get up early and go work out. Like, that's all you got to do. And I'm an athlete too. Like, I was in the Division I crew program at Syracuse. So that's like a big piece of who I am. And it really got me going. To make a long story short, we sort of formed this group we called the 5 a.m.ers because we were getting up early. So Jake moves to Colorado, didn't disband necessarily, but, people just sort of drifted out into their world. We stopped doing the calls and everything like that. So about a year, 2 years goes by. I'm not sure the exact amount of time. And I'm at Compass and pandemic hits in March of 2020. And I was so out of control. I was drinking and eating and sleeping late and staying up late and watching TV and scrolling on Instagram and, reading the news every day. How many people have died? You name it. It was negative. It was so bad. And I was really, really frustrated towards the end of March because of the fact I was like, I can't control what's happening outside. I can't control the fact that we can't even show a house in Pennsylvania right now.
Yeah.
I can't worry about that. But what I can do is I can wake up early. I can create a morning routine. I can work out outside. I can work out inside. I can read a book. I can set a goal. So I basically just took the elements of the 5 a.m.ers. We launched it in the Philadelphia region in April of 2020. And then pretty much every month after that just continues to grow. And it's what it is it's a community of like-minded people who are all focused on being healthy, selfish, and getting 1% better every single day of the month of the year. So that's it. And it's we have one rule in the group, and that's to be happy. That's it. And to have fun. So that's it. I'm sorry, I actually said that wrong. The rule is to have fun, which will enable you to be happy. So that's the whole idea. Do you know what I mean? Behind the whole thing.
I totally dig it. And I like how you took a really incredibly compounded, horrible experiences and actually turned them into something really cool.
It's beautiful. We've had over 5,000 Compass agents participate, and it's if you go to a retreat, you're going to see T-shirts and bracelets. We have breakfasts, and there's all kinds of stuff that we do. I also have one of the challenges is that people would also want to listen to the calls, but they're only inside Compass. So this past year, Emily and I created our first podcast. So there are 24 episodes out there that you can listen to, and they're amazing interviews with authors, realtors, business owners, thought leaders. And it's a great way that the public, or if you're a realtor at a different company, you can listen to the 6 Amers podcast online pretty easily. It's on all your major networks. So
I think all of that is awesome. I love what you do, and I love that you're just about the contribution. And just as a side footnote, if you're with another brokerage, you can still go to YouTube and you can still take what is useful. And as I mentioned, I'm with a different brokerage than Keller Williams. I still got a ton of value out of the book.
Yep.
If nothing else, that I would love for the takeaway for anybody listening to this is take what is useful. And that's a Bruce Lee. And just, if it's useful to you, go and then use it, go apply it somewhere. And it doesn't have to be a specific brokerage or dogma or belief or any of that. Just if that one little thing is of value to you, go and implement it into your life.
So true.
It's funny. I feel like I went on a parallel path with you. I typically, outside of COVID, I rarely drink. I have like one drink a month. Prior to workout religiously, like 5 days a week. And there was a point at COVID when it was just like a ton of drinking. I gained a bunch of weight. Like I looked at a photo, I was like, oh my God, that's not even me. And I wasn't going outside. I was like walking to the mailbox and getting out of breath. And it was same thing. I hit that point, man. I was like, something changed. Like this is not good. Like this is not. And I wound up, my big moment was I wound up taking half of the garage, kicking out everything that was on that side. I ordered a ton of gym equipment. And I was like, if I can't go to the gym, I'm bringing the gym to me.
Exactly. Practicing extreme ownership right there, Shawn, right? Like, what do I own? I can do this on my own. And that's huge. And I think there's, and the lesson as well is like, there's always beauty in the midst of struggle. It's hard to see the beauty of what's going to be created, but the best creations typically don't happen in times of abundance or ease or happiness, or right. The best creations typically happen in a time of strife and conflict and challenge. And that's what I think the thing is, if anyone is listening to this and you're going through something, it's really, really easy to focus on how low you might be in that moment, but know that if you actually leverage it as an opportunity, there's some beautiful things that you can build beyond this low point you might be experiencing.
Yeah, there's a weird in life, a bounce effect. It's like when you hit that bottom point and it's really hard, there's momentum in how far you crashed, and there's an equal and opposite reaction. You bounce out of it. And I've similar to you, I've gone through a divorce. I've changed careers a couple times. I went through the hell of COVID, as we all did. But it's like, okay, I can live here and I can dwell in this thing, or I can learn from it and figure out what it is I don't want and what I do want and make changes. And we always have options. Like when we feel like we're backed into a corner, we don't have any. If you dig a little bit deeper, there's always another option. There's always another way. It's just, are you willing to actually go through and do that thing?
Yeah, and I think too, you got to ask yourself, you're either being a champion or you're being a victim, and where on the spectrum are you participating in your life at that moment? If you're complaining and you're being a victim, and nothing gets created when you're a victim. If you're empowered, you're reading, you're making yourself better, you're controlling what you can control. Every day you wake up, you have routine, structure, consistency, etc. Well, you're being a champion. And let's be real, like great things aren't built by victims. Do you know what I mean? If you're in the victim mentality, you're not going to build anything great. So you got to ebb into that champion mentality.
You're a Division I competitor, which is a huge feat. And, if you focus on just winning and losing the competition, you're going to lose. You have to focus on the work. Just focus on showing up every day. Focus on 100%. Focus on doing the drills. Just focus on those aspects. And especially going into 2023 in business, and the economy's shifted, our interest rates have turned. It's take your business, go to the basics and do them, and just be incredibly consistent in those basics. What would be, to shift gears here, in your opinion, if a brand new agent, they're like, I got my license a week ago, if I can do these 5 things, let's say every day for a month, what would you say those 5 things should be?
Number 1, you have to organize your database. So every agent comes on and maybe they don't even download their database, their contacts into their CRM. You have to download your contacts and then organize it to make it make sense, and not to log in and be immediately overwhelmed about the number of people you don't know and what you're not doing to them. Right. So that's number 1. Number 2, if every new agent took their entire database and you figured out who in your market owns a home, and you systematically work at making sure you update their when they purchase the property, with their sphere of or their social media accounts, etc., and you implement a 1-item action plan of a portfolio review on their home sale anniversary. And a portfolio review, all it is a little market snapshot, some analysis by you, delivered to the seller with sophistication, with really high level of class, etc. And you do that for everyone in your sphere that owns a home, I can guarantee you that you are going to do a really good business that first year, and it's only going to get better from there.
That's huge. We actually, as on our team, we literally just got out our neighborhood reviews, which is essentially the same thing. It's a CMA that's a little bit more generic. And it goes to everybody that owns a home. It's really beautifully bound. It's a beautiful book. It goes with a handwritten note. And I think the other beautiful thing that you didn't say is there's no call to action. It's, here's a gift. Here's how your home is performing. All right. So that was 2 things. You got 3 more to go.
The third thing is that your calendar will determine your success. So you have to take your calendar and you have to figure out, where is learning going to be, where are appointments going to be, where is lead generation going to be, where is personal fulfillment going to be. And I can tell if someone's going to be successful probably in 5 seconds by seeing their calendar. And because of the fact that a successful person's calendar will be organized, doesn't need to be perfect, but there has to be time on there that's dedicated to business building activities. And if there is no time on that calendar, chances are they are missing out on some massive opportunity right now to build their business. And all of your past clients, the other realtors, are contacting your past clients. So that's what I would do if I was going back.
That's fair. That's 3.
The 4th thing is I would have every new agent, or every agent, create a marketing plan for their sphere with a variety of marketing pieces, from phone call, email, text, events, newsletters, etc. Not just one thing. And I would put that into a plan that could be executed not by me, but by someone else, or by me using technology in a really high level. And the fifth thing is that I would recognize the fact that lead generation is the solution to all problems in real estate. So if you are experiencing a downturn in your business, or you're experiencing you need a little money, lead generation is the solution. That'll be the thing that solves it all day, every day. And those are the 5 things I would recommend people do.
All right. So here's what I love about this. And you and I did not have a conversation before this. I did not prompt you with what are 5 things somebody should do. We've never discussed this in any capacity before this. And I would just like to call out that I just threw this at you and you immediately gave 5 things. Like, if anybody's not picking up your expertise by this point, and not with a pen and paper writing down those 5 things and just putting their head down to do those 5 things right now, I don't know what to say.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Those are simple, but incredibly accurate, 100% accurate.
And Shawn, here's the irony too. Those 5 things we gave were for new agents. Here's the thing. The vast majority of experienced agents aren't doing those 5 things. And imagine if we as an industry just adopted that, or just at Compass, everyone started doing those 5 things. Like, where would we be in a year?
My background is martial arts, which I have talked to about ad nauseum. So everybody listening is probably sick of me talking about it. The higher you get up in rank, the more you work on basic stuff. Like, and everybody wants to learn like more and more flowery moves in these, and you'd learn that to be engaged with it. But the reality is, in martial arts, and most fights are won with 1 of 2 punches and 1 of 2 kicks. Like, it's just right down to the basics. And that's, I mean, you make such a great point with this. If every agent, regardless if they're in the business 1 year or 10 years, and they just followed this thing, it would be like everybody's business would go up a notch, if not many notches.
That's so true.
I think those 5 things, that is the absolute 100% perfect way to end cap this. But before we do, I know you have a book coming up.
It's called Real Estate with Heart, which is named after my real estate team. And it's about how to build, run, and maintain a real estate team that you love. And that's the title. So it's going to go through, the fingerprint exercise. There's going to be a little bit of practicality, a lot of philosophy, because a lot of teams want like real specific to-do lists, but it's your personality. So it's very difficult to give exact things to do to someone on their team or about their team. But what I want to try to build is, if you think of a blueprint for a home, a blueprint is like an exact measurement, etc. Most agents want the blueprint for the perfect team. But what they don't realize is there is no blueprint. You can only provide a framework. And my hope is that we build out a framework that's really compact and concise and understandable. So when people come in, that they have a really, really good idea of how to run a team within the framework, not within the blueprint. Because reality, like the Keller Williams book, that's a blueprint. The reality is most teams don't really follow that blueprint. They follow a framework.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. It's, again, you have to take what's useful, what works in your market. Every market is slightly different. Everybody's personality. We just talked about personalities. Personalities are all different. Now you start mixing personalities with different people and different roles, and you're constantly working to evolve. So I think it's a much smarter way to approach it. Like, there is no shoe that fits everybody equally the same. Like, it's there's nuances to all of this, and really understanding how to get there, I feel, is incredibly important. So I'm going to put you on the hot seat. When do you think this book is going to be launching?
The goal is, and I'm not sure exactly when this podcast is going to get published, but the goal is actually March of this year to have it sort of end of March is the goal. It's drafted. It needs massive levels of updating and insertion of like more personal, I'm working hard on it, but it's the easiest thing for me to procrastinate on as well. So it's it will be done, like I said, the end of March. It will be done. So if you're listening to this, it actually may be released by then. Once again, I'm not sure exactly when when this will be released, but end of March is the goal. It's going to happen, and it's going to be great.
It's being recorded, so this will be part of it. If it releases before this comes out, I will 100% make sure that we include the link so people can find that. And if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
The best way, to be honest with you, is probably via email, which is skye@compass.com, or my Instagram, which is just at the 6Amers.
Anybody who doesn't know, it's like gamers, but it's 6, the number 6, AMERS.
Exactly. So my Instagram, my personal Instagram, just my first and last name, no period. So at Skye Michiels. So those are some of the ways to get in touch with me, and open to answering any questions, helping anyone out there. And my hope is that the work I do has massive impact on people, and more importantly, hopefully the work I do, makes me a really happy person as well.
Nice. I like that philosophy. Skye, an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shawn. I really appreciate you.